everybody. Stewart A. Swerdlow.
And Diane Mourglia-Swerdlow.
For the Expansions News Podcast, the third week of February 2016.
Because it's a leap year, it's going to be the 29th soon.
And you know what's going to happen on the 29th?
It doesn't really happen, because it's not really a day.
It's the Illuminati.
I know, no. The people who have birthdays on that day are going to finally have a birthday.
They only age 1 year every 4 years.
That's right, so they finally get a birthday.
Yes, and the Illuminati call it the day that is not a day.
That's right, so that's why those people are very slow to age.
And it is also a day for exercise, because you leap. It's a day for leaping.
Go back to your notes.
Mm-hmm. Anyway. Actually, here's a story that is a little, not difficult, but it's bad for the people in the Pacific. Because the most powerful storm on record in the southern hemisphere is re-intensifying over the open waters after it smacked Fiji. You know what it did? It squeegeed Fiji.
Does it have a name?
Yes.
What?
Well, it's a cyclone. And what's the name of it? Cyclone Winston. Tropical Cyclone Winston. Because Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. Remember that?
Yes, I do, unfortunately.
Does that still exist, that cigarette? I don't even know.
Well, why would I know?
Because you smoke constantly. That's why you have that raspy voice. Anyway. Cyclone Winston has winds of 162 miles per hour that are sustained with gusts over 200 miles per hour, which for those of you elsewhere in the world, that's over 350 kilometers per hour in the winds. And the government of Fiji said that the megastorm has the potential to cause catastrophic damage across Fiji. Now, of course, the media will say that this is because of what? Global warming. But what we know is that as a precursor to an ice age, there are these extremes in weather. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is really about. Now, let's shift over a little bit to Russia and Turkey.
You talk about them every week. People are
I
going
know.
to get bored about that.
They're not going to get bored about this because
No?
it's my predictions coming true.
Oh.
Because
Maybe they just read your stuff and then they're just
you
doing
know
what you say.
that Turkey is trying to be the new Ottoman Empire, and Russia is trying to be the new Soviet Union. Blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. And Turkey is associated with NATO. So European diplomats have warned the Turkish government that it cannot count on NATO to support them should a conflict arise with Russia, an armed conflict. Now, that's a significant thing to say.
Because?
Because, first of all, NATO is supposed to defend all of its members. Mm-hmm. But they're telling Turkey, but bye.
Really?
Yeah, bye. So, but there's a reason why they don't like Erdogan. Nobody likes Erdogan. I don't think he likes himself.
But somebody had to put him there.
Yes, but let me give you some more information, because I mentioned, I think last week, that Syria is getting ground forces from Turkey and Saudi Arabia, okay, as part of an international Muslim force in Syria. But Russia is carrying out their own airstrikes in Syria.
You know what? It would be better if you had little soldiers you can move them around to show people.
I should have done. Next week I'm going to do that
as we talk.
Yeah,
it would demonstrate that.
I'm Russia. Oh, I'm Turkey.
And it wouldn't be so boring that you're telling the same stories over and over again.
Yeah, I know. But I have to get I'll have to do that.
Yeah, army. Anyway.
You remember that Saturday Night Live used to have that little thing.
Was that Mr. Dave or something?
Mr. something. Oh, he's going to be mean to me. And it gets smashed. All that. That's what we're going to do. Yeah, I'm going to do that next week. Anyway, Russia is bombing Syria, and they're concerned that they might accidentally bomb Turkish and Saudi Arabian troops in there. Which is a possibility.
With toy soldiers, you could really do some things with this.
But we also have, on the eastern end of Turkey, the Kurdish forces, and Russia has asked Turkey to stop bombing the Kurds. And they said no, they're going to keep bombing them, because Turkey's plan was based on the assumption that if there was a conflict, they could invoke Article 5 of the NATO treaty, which calls, as I mentioned before, collective defense of if any member state is attacked. But Luxembourg foreign minister said, no, don't count on NATO. And he said, NATO cannot allow itself to be pulled into a military escalation with Russia as the result of the recent tensions between Russia and Turkey. And he goes further to say, we are not going to pay the price for a war started by the Turks. So this is very significant because it means the Europeans realize the Turks are the ones who are the aggressor. And the French president said, François Hollande, I love saying his name. Hello, I am President François Hollande. But he said there is a risk of war between Turkey and Russia. You understand? But here's another thing that I just found out yesterday, as you know from friends of mine, or I have friends in very high places.
You do?
I do.
Usually, like they live in mountains and stuff?
Well, they have such high places, they need to take an elevator to the top floor to get there. Mm-hmm. So, very high places. And there is apparently nearing that the Kurds will declare an independent Kurdistan, which, as people may realize, Kurdistan actually is part of Iraq, Syria, and Turkey.
Well, the Kurds are actually very special people.
They are very special. They eat their Kurds anyway. Yes.
They have very interesting genetics.
They do have interesting genetics, and but the Kurds are actually supported militarily and politically by Russia and Israel, believe it or not. So it's going to be very interesting.
Yes, it will.
Now, let's go further into Europe, because this will back up everything I've been saying. The British head of Europol has warned that as many as 5,000 ISIS-trained jihadists are wandering free in Europe.
How'd they get there?
Well, they let them in. And he said there's between 3,000 to 5,000 jihadists that have been able to slip back into Europe after training with ISIS in the Middle East. He further goes on to say, we can expect ISIS or other religious terror groups to stage an attack somewhere in Europe with the aim of achieving mass casualties among the civilian population. Where have you heard that before? And I'm going to say the worst is yet to come. You think Paris was bad? No.
I agree.
No, it'll get worse. Now let's come to the U.S. Now, what happened this past week?
A lot of stuff.
The Pope. Pope Francis said that Donald Trump is not a Christian. Oh, the Satanist from the Vatican said Donald Trump is not a Christian. That's very interesting. And he said, and I quote, a person who thinks only about building walls wherever they may be and not building bridges is not Christian. This is not the gospel, said the Pope who lives in a country surrounded by walls. Brilliant.
And supposedly was supposed to take in a Syrian family, but that story was dropped. I never have heard that story again.
Because he's like, no, I don't want them here. And he also, Trump said that Pope Francis' comments were disgraceful, which it is. And here's what else he said. If and when the Vatican is attacked by ISIS, which, as everyone knows, is ISIS' ultimate trophy, which it is, I can promise you that the Pope would have only wished and prayed that Donald Trump would have been president.
Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing is they are now involving religion in politics.
Right.
And this is global religion in our politics here in the U.S.
Yes, and Trump was very quick to point out truthfully that the Vatican City is 100% surrounded by massive walls.
Right. And do you know what the Pope said today?
He said more things?
He said more. He said that he thinks the world should not have the death penalty anymore. That it should be outlawed worldwide.
Yeah, you know why? Because when his crimes come up, they're going to want to kill him.
Yeah. But
so
the interesting thing is, which I've reported before, and I didn't put it in these particular notes, but the Vatican has interest in the arms and munitions that are sold worldwide.
That's correct, absolutely.
So, and I have said that, reported that before. So here, besides this, getting involved in politics, he's also now saying that we shouldn't have the death penalty, and they are the ones that supply the arms.
Well, when he did his mass in Ciudad Juarez, which is right across the border from El Paso, he said forced migration of thousands of Central Americans is a human tragedy and a humanitarian crisis. So my proposal is, I would like the Pope to tear down the Vatican walls
That's a good idea.
and allow
That's a good idea.
minimum, because how many thousands are in the
I
Vatican?
like that.
And I want at least 1,000 Syrian refugees to live with him in there.
You know what? I think you should be Donald Trump's vice president.
Oh, I think Donald needs to call me.
Yeah.
I think
You ran into him that time.
I met him that time.
I remember.
I crashed into
Marla Maples.
Marla Maples. Yeah, I did crash accidentally into her, but he was very nice about it.
So
And so
therefore,
is she, actually.
maybe he'll remember you when he sees this, and you can now be vice president, and you can
Yes.
have him talk to the Pope about tearing down the walls.
Yes.
I think that's a great idea.
Yes, but here's what I think is the Pope's emotional thing. He says, as he was leaving, he said, "At times, I felt like weeping to see so much hope in a people who are suffering so much," meaning the Mexicans. So I think, really, what about the boys who've been raped by priests that you protect? Do you weep for them?
Well, on top of that, he could just melt down that one cross
'Cause
and
let me tell you
feed the
something.
whole family.
There've been more altar boys and Catholic boys raped by priests than all the people suffering in Mexico.
But not only that, he could feed those people with that gold cross he carries. Remember that
Oh, yeah.
that huge like thing?
Yeah.
And you just melt that down
Take
and feed
one
everybody.
one wall of the Vatican, sell
Yeah.
whatever's on any wall, pick a wall,
Yeah.
they could feed them.
They could.
Thousands, yeah.
So there, we've solved everything. We've solved world
So
hunger.
really, Pope,
everything.
look in the mirror. Oh, he can't because he doesn't have reflection.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You tried.
Yeah.
Anyway, what else?
Oh, what my last story?
Yeah.
It's about Korea.
Oh, you love
the
Korea.
only bipolar country that's split north and south. They're
Oh, that's
am I
why.
north, am I south, am I communist?
Well,
anyway,
that's-
so the South Koreans have warned that nuclear tests, which are being carried out by North Korea, would cause catastrophic volcanic eruption because there's a volcano near their test site. And this expert who wrote a paper from Yonsei University in Seoul, South Korea, said the force of a nuclear bomb being detonated underground could affect the magma of Mount Paektu volcano, which is about 70 miles away from where they test. And he says this constitutes a direct threat to the volcano. North Korean nuclear explosions are expected to produce pressure changes of tens to hundreds of kilopascals, whatever that is.
I guess it's a lot.
I guess a kilopascal.
Kill a pascal of people.
Yes, and causing concern over the possibility of triggering a volcanic eruption. Now, in 1903, this volcano erupted. It's a 9,000-foot high volcano. In 1903 was the last time it erupted, and it was one of the largest explosive events in human history.
I didn't know that.
No, I thought my emotions were, but apparently not. It was this volcano. And what the volcano said, actually, as it exploded to the Korea, you get out now. This my play, you get out. Anyway, my opinion is, let it explode. Get rid of North Korea, right?
Yeah, but what happens to the rest of the world when the ash cloud goes
Oh,
all over the place?
Details.
Yeah. Climate change, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Right, it's climate change.
I have a Donald Trump story. And this one, of course, happened in South Carolina, which we know South Carolina is always in the news these days.
And it will be for a good time.
Yeah, and this one is about Donald Trump telling about a pig's blood story.
I heard
that supposedly General John Pershing ordered the execution of dozens of Muslim prisoners in the Philippines during a guerrilla war against the U.S. in the early 1900s. He claims that they took 50 bullets, dipped them in pig's blood.
Right.
Then they lined them up, they killed 49 men, and they sent the 50th back to tell,
they said it wasn't true.
yeah, they said it was a hoax. But the interesting thing is it's all over the internet. And the other interesting thing is I will tell you there's a similar story in Waldensian history. When the Waldensians when they were protecting their territory, they put boulders down on top of a huge army and they left one person alive and they sent them back.
Is that a true story, though?
Well, I have no way of verifying it, but the point is that this story, how stories, the same story gets told over and over and over again and then people think it's fact. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
However, I can't maybe say too many bad things if that you're going to be his vice president or something.
Probably not as vice president. I'm thinking like major advisor.
That could
something
be.
like
All
that.
right, well then they won't know who you are exactly. So, and then speaking of the Syrian immigrants, now I thought this was interesting that the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and Poland are meeting to form a blockade to stop the migrants from arriving in their countries from Greece.
Well, Poland won't even let him in.
The countries are known as the Visegrad Group, where they want to seal the Balkan borders. Leaders of also Bulgaria and Macedonia will attend this meeting in Prague. So my point is what does this mean for the EU? If all these countries are coming together to form a blockade against Greece...
Well, first of all, Macedonia is not part of the EU. Both the presidents of Poland and Czech Republic said we're not letting any of these people in. But the truth is, they could just, walk in from the other places.
Right, and there's so many places that on those borders that are not guarded because there's mountains.
There was really no border.
Right. So this is interesting, however, that they're talking about this and putting this out publicly.
Yeah.
Because it's another division within the EU.
Right, true.
And then we have the death of Judge Scalia. Scalia. And apparently, we had talked about that last time, that he was found with a pillow over his face.
Yeah, but now they said, it wasn't over his head, it was above his head.
Yeah, so what's going to happen with that? And, of course...
why wasn't there an autopsy? He died of a heart attack when you never looked inside.
That's what they said. He said, Judge Cinderella Guevara.
Whose name said, I have a baby, I think I shall name it Cinderella.
Yeah.
Who did that?
So anyway, like we talked about, a lot of strange things happening here as we end February, and I think that was one of the strangest. Now listen to this one. This is Miss Arkansas. Says that Bill Clinton was her paramour.
What else?
And confided that Hillary was into sex with women.
Oh, that's old news.
That is old news, except that this woman is 77 years old.
Ooh. And he likes old ladies.
Apparently now
how old is he now?
I don't know.
He's close up there.
Must be. She was, I think, a little older at the time. Yeah, he was 7 years younger than her, so that makes him 70. Anyway, the point of this story, which I thought was interesting, because we've talked about this before, is how these political figures get rid of people like Judge Scalia. So here we have another one, and she is a former singer and radio host, and she's convinced that now the Democratic presidential candidate, Hillary, is in a plot to silence her. So she went to social media to post a warning saying if she dies by suicide, no one should believe them.
Okay.
She says she's been stalked, spied upon, and plagued, and then by anonymous phone calls. So she goes on to say that in 1992, she received a sinister invitation from a Clinton operative who offered her a lucrative federal job if she would be quiet, so she declined that offer. Then they said, if you don't take the job, we know where you're going running, we'll break your legs. So apparently then they got into the back of her Jeep and shot out all the windows. So then she went to the FBI to report that. Then she was nearly knocked down outside their office by a car with no plates.
Yeah, that's like the chickens reporting to the wolf police.
Exactly. And then she said that there was a string of young married suitors, especially a handsome lawyer named Eric, who admitted that he was employed by the Clinton cartel. And then she said the Democrats made a mysterious $1 million donation to her employer, which was also her alma mater, Lindenwood College in Missouri, and then she was fired from their admissions department. Then she went to China in 1994 to try to escape this and took a job as a radio broadcaster. Clintons arrived in Beijing in 1998, and then she said her hotel room was mysteriously raided by Chinese soldiers. And then they claimed they were looking for drugs and weapons and saying that she was a drugs and weapons person.
Or maybe they're trying to return her laundry.
Well, then eventually she went back up in the U.S. Now she's getting calls from 911, and they say, Miss Miller, we understand there's an emergency and you're about to commit suicide. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, because we know what happens when you do that.
Yes, and then they said that it was a family member, a close friend that's reported, but they can't give her the name.
Right, because they don't exist.
That's right. So anyway, she wants to publish her memoir, but nobody will take her book.
We'll do it. Why don't you publish it?
She's afraid for her life.
We're not afraid for our lives, because we're immortal vampires.
There you go. So anyway, I thought that was very interesting. And somebody's going to quote that somewhere on the internet. And you know what they're going to say?
You know what? They accuse me of all kinds of things. I don't care.
Drew pictures and stuff of us doing all kinds of things.
Yeah, fine. I'll show them myself in a mankini. That'll teach them.
Yeah, that'll blind them.
I know.
They won't be able to use
blinds me when I look in the mirror.
They won't be able to use the internet anymore after that one.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to skip to this story because this one. Well, maybe I won't. I'm going to go on because I don't want to confuse you.
Please go on.
Anyway, there was a mysterious mammoth carcass found that could change human history. They're always finding mammoths, right?
Yeah.
This is a 45,000-year-old mammoth that they claim died at the hands of hunters, and they say that's not unusual, but it was found in a remote spot in the permafrost in central Siberia.
But they always find it there.
Well, according to this, now they're saying no, because it talks about this how people migrated. And so they said this particular find is going to change the story of the spread of the humanity across the planet.
Why?
Because it was done by hunters found in a place that they didn't think people were.
I see.
So anyway, I just thought that was interesting to note because they keep talking about how this is going to change the various things, how it's going to change history.
Here's what they should know.
What?
There are living woolly mammoths in Siberia now.
Yeah, well, we're going to bring one home for a pet, right?
Yes, I would like
Keep
that.
it in the ravine. And then in North Carolina, I thought this was interesting. They're drug testing its welfare recipients. And when they did that in North Carolina, they found that only 0.3% of approximately 7,600 people that they tested showed positive for drug use, right?
That's pretty good.
And now what's interesting is why are they doing this? Because they said that there are other states, there are 13 other states who have similar results. In Arizona, they tested 87,000 welfare recipients, and only one person tested positive.
So what does that mean?
It means how much money are they spending and why are they doing this? And then in addition, there are 19 states proposing similar legislation.
I still don't understand.
I think what they're doing is, first of all, they go after the poor. You know, they can't defend themselves, and of course they need the money or the benefit, so they make them do it as a way to control the rest of the population. Because why are they doing this and spending the money when it's showing that these people are not using drugs, right?
Oh, okay.
So it's a way of infiltrating. So pretty soon they just test everybody for drugs or whatever. And they'll say, oh, you know what, you're not taking your mental medication, or you're not taking this medication, because they want people to be depressed when you go to a doctor, right? They're supposed
usually
to,
are because you're sick.
but they're going to screen you now. That's what doctors are supposed to do, and if you show up that you're depressed or you answer certain questions, you have to take pills.
Right.
So then they give you the pills, and if you're not taking it, they're going to find out in these tests, and they're going to make you take it. So I think, again, they're sneaking in, because otherwise, why would they do something knowing what the results are going to be? And the more states are going to do it. It costs more money, and these people can't say no. So that's what I think. I'd like to read the trends.
They need Nancy Reagan. Just say no.
And then, did you see about the heavily armed Louisiana police captain
Yes, I did.
who is taunting the groups? And this is all over Facebook, and he's saying, you will be hunted, you will be tracked. And apparently, so I'm thinking, okay, what's going on in Louisiana? Well, apparently there were 17 gang members. They have found 10, and they're looking for 7. So this man now has 20,000 likes on his Facebook page. We don't have that many. Plus, he sells his own merchandise.
Really?
With T-shirts and shot glasses and slogans.
For what?
Because he's this tough
No,
cop.
but for the police he's doing that?
No, for himself personally. And then he's saying he has this web store. He's claiming that the money he gets in goes to help the homeless and victims of crimes. Which is possible. But my point is, again, this is a show.
Yeah.
And that's what our life is now. Everything's on show, right? What's real and what's not.
So they'll make a reality show out of that.
Yes. And also this feeds into vigilante programming.
Right.
And, in my opinion, the Civil War.
True, because it's in the South.
And it's also, he has a Facebook page for this and selling merchandise, so it's a show.
Maybe we should do something like that.
Well, we do have something like this, but we don't do as well as this guy. Guess we have to be vigilantes or something.
We have to be aggressive.
And then I told you last week about the rock band Viola Beach that was found dead in a canal.
In Sweden.
Yes, in Sweden. Now, in the Netherlands, a woman's car somehow, they said, ended up at the canal. A woman and a child who was pulled out. So that's 2. So what's going on with the canals?
What about here in Michigan? They found that couple in a car. And it was frozen over.
Yes.
And in the pond or something.
Yeah, so I don't know what this means, but it means something because this is specifically canals. So the reason I brought that up is because I also told you about the chefs that were being found dead.
Yes.
And so, and there were 2 of those, and you have to go back on my podcast because I'm not going to repeat them again. But the third one now, apparently there was a chef that died last August on the Queen Mary 2 cruise liner that the police said it was suicide and he threw himself over. Okay, again, it's a 26-year-old...
Maybe he wasn't happy with the way his soup came out.
26-year-old Chilean chef, Fabio Onate, and the death certificate says that he committed suicide. And the mother says no. And so then the father comes in and says no, and the friends say no. And then you know what happened? Yeah. After this happened, they changed the entire crew on his ship. So they could not go in and investigate. And of course, there's no body because he went overboard.
They never found the body.
But I'm telling you that there's something.
They never found the body.
No.
Then how do they know he committed suicide?
Well, that's what they're saying there. They're saying he was depressed, and the crew, even his own crew, says he was not depressed.
You know what? Him and Scalia, same people.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, don't become a chef, because that's like one of the most dangerous professions, it's seeming, because you hear these state secrets from all these important people. And remember, I told you about the people that put the masks on so they don't know who you are, the servers and whatnot. So don't be a chef.
No chef.
No
That's
chef.
why I won't cook.
Don't be a chef. I don't think it's a good idea. And then this was also interesting because this, I think her name is Ronda Rousey or whatever, this female wrestler is like all
boxer.
over the place.
She's a boxer, isn't
Yeah,
she?
and I'm thinking, why is this happening? I've kind of had my eye on that story. Well, then we have Kendall Jenner that shows up.
Kendall Jenner.
She's a Jenner person.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's like a model or something, and now she's modeling Calvin Klein underwear, and she's wrestling men.
Who is doing
This Kendall Jenner. She's 20 years old, and she's wrestling men. And they're all in their underwear wrestling. And then they say, together we are stronger than we could ever be alone. So they're imprinting people, again, to fight, and it's very sexual, has a lot of sexual overtones. So the same thing with this Ronda Rousey person. It's probably not even her real name, I'm sure. But anyway, they're getting women, again, remember, they want to put them in combat. They want them to register for the draft. So all these things are happening. These are all animal mind activities, sex and violence, period. And speaking of sex, in Seattle, I don't know if you knew this or not, but the state apparently has a law that says that you can go to any restroom that you want, depending on how you feel.
Oh, that's nice.
So anyway,
Let's move to Seattle.
a man undressed in a woman's locker room, citing a new state rule that allows people to choose a bathroom based on gender identity. It was a busy time at this pool in Seattle. A man entered that started undressing, and women told the
I
staff
think he had another reason.
and told the man to leave. But he said the law has changed and I have a right to be here.
Well, why would he want to do that?
So the employees said the man made no verbal or physical attempt to identify as a woman, yet he cited the new rule that said he could be there.
I see.
So then the opponents obviously say that the rule opens up bathrooms to voyeurs, but supporters say that's an unrealistic fear. So no one was arrested. The police were not called. I don't know why. Then the man came a second time when there were young girls changing for swim practice. So then we have Seattle Park spokesman David Takami says they're still working on the issue. Right now, there's no specific protocol for how someone should demonstrate their gender in order to access a bathroom.
So I'm sure he was demonstrating his gender. But when you were growing up in Seattle, did a man ever come into the ladies' room when you were in there?
If they did, we certainly chased them out.
I would think so.
So I think those women could have chased them out personally.
I
I would have chased them out. I mean, that's ridiculous. So, and going on again with more sex, because people love that kind of stuff. That's why it's everywhere.
Yes.
The top 10 Super Bowl commercials, which I was on researching something else that showed up, so I'll come in and watch this. And you know what they have? It's
What?
This PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Now, we learned
know what
about
they're like.
PETA. Yeah, a lot of you think that they're up there protecting animals' rights, but they're
They're not.
And even when we got Natasha, the woman who we got Natasha from told us what PETA does at dog shows. These dogs have been lovingly taken and cared for. These PETA people come in, they open up the doors, they put them across highways, they let them loose and chase
so they
them.
get killed by cars.
Yes. All kinds of terrible things that they do just with dogs. So everything else you're seeing that they're showing you, most of it is staged. So I will tell you that. So PETA, now remember what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you weak by not eating meat. So they actually showed, to me this belonged like in a soft porn commercial or thing, not something like people are watching the football games with families and friends and aunts and uncles and old grandmas and grandpas and your kids and teenagers and whatnot. They show two couples. One is they say vegans and one are meat eaters. And then they show this couple in bed, the woman on top of the man with sheet over them, but she's sitting up and she's bouncing up and down like they're having sex.
This is on television?
On the Super Bowl commercials. Really? On both of them. So they're both on each side bouncing up and down, having sex, emulating that obviously because they've got sheets over them. So we think they're emulating. They could be doing something under there. I don't know. And then the meat eater man is done and the woman's not, so to speak. So she gets up mad and disappointed and he's laying there like this. And the vegan man keeps going until his woman's pleased.
Oh, he's in the bed too?
Well, it's a split screen.
Ah.
They show the vegans versus the meat eaters.
I see.
And the vegans win.
Because that's funny because every vegan I know can't even keep their head up.
Yeah, well, Exactly. And that's what somebody wrote, I read on YouTube thing, that he couldn't keep us up, so that's what took him so long. But this is a family commercial. This is a family event, and this is what they're showing. And can you imagine having to explain this to your kids? What are they doing, Mommy? What are they doing, Daddy? This I thought was really terrible. So that was the one thing that I wanted to be sure and tell you about. And then the other thing that on the top 10 commercials, this one you'll also appreciate, that there is okay, I know you're going to question this one. This guy's having a conversation with a beer tap.
A beer tap?
Beer tap.
Well, I do that sometimes.
So I don't know exactly what the beer tap represented, but my guess is maybe a phallic symbol. Anyway, the beer tap says to the guy that the guy looks like a Civil War general.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we have another subliminal message of Civil War.
Oh, that's right.
In front of millions of people who are all jazzed up from just watching a sex show.
And who the tap then makes them sexually excited because it's a phallic symbol.
Yes. So anyway, I thought, well,
brilliant.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, they know what they're doing. Just don't respond, people. And then I have one last story.
Oh, thank God.
This is a Muslim story.
Is it appropriate?
I don't know. You'll tell me.
I don't want to have any jihadis over here.
Anyway, it says that some people were carrying out an experiment to make a point. So they took a Bible and they wrapped it up like the Quran.
Yeah.
Then they found people out on the street and they filmed them and they had them read passages from what the people thought were the Quran. So this is what they read. Things like, a woman should live in quietness and full submission. If you reject my commands and abhor my laws, you will eat the flesh of your own sons and your own daughters.
This is in the Christian Bible?
This is what the people were reading. And they thought they were reading from the
Quran.
Quran.
But I'm saying it was a Christian Bible.
I don't allow for a woman to teach. You will have to cut off her hand. Do not forgive her. And if two men sleep with each other, they will both have to be killed. So those were some examples. So the people thought they were awful, they were terrible, and so on. And then they, of course, revealed it was the Bible. And then the people said, oh my gosh, So the point of this experiment was that just because we have some Muslims who are radicals, and just because we have some Christians who are radicals, doesn't mean everybody's like that.
I say get rid of all of it.
So the point being is that there are a lot of people out there fear-mongering. And even, you and I were talking about this, because you see things and it's written in Arabic, or they're speaking in Arabic, or some other language.
Well, that was the Palestinian TV,
yeah,
where the imam was on the Palestinian TV telling men how to beat their wives up.
But the thing is we don't know if that was really said unless we actually hear the languages. They show it and then they have the translations. Mm-hmm. We have to believe this crap, and I think it's fear-mongering, period. So my point being is don't spread this crap. People pass it all over the internet. The less attention we give the fear-mongering, the less it's going to grow.
I say do not believe in any religion, period.
Well, and then you're reading the Apocrypha.
Apocrypha, which if you read that, these are the books that were excluded from the Bible.
Yes.
Let me tell you, it's like reading about ISIS, and these were Jews.
Yeah, and it's supposedly Christian.
They cut
people.
off heads, they killed people, they burned people alive, they raped them because God told them.
Yeah, so you have to think about these things. So whatever is going on out there, like I said, in my opinion, do not spread the fear and the violence. Mm-hmm. Ignore it because they're trying to incite you, and the more you spread that stuff, the worse it becomes. So let it go.
When I become emperor and my people come,
or Trump's vice
no more religion.
President consultant type of person.
Right.
Yeah. So remember what we tell you. We are the same religion as God, okay?
Yes.
And so that's really what everybody is, and when it comes right down to it. So let it go. Speaking of which, Waldensian Country Tour, June 2016. So we're going to go to the mountain peaks. We're going to do a lot of amazing things up in the mountains.
This is going to be like a scene from The Sound of Music.
Except
You're going to be dancing in the fields on the hills and singing.
And we have fantastic prices. I have a fantastic albergo. I have fantastic food lined up. We're just going to see amazing things. So it's a health and healing, clear energy, spiritual tour. You want to get away from things and you want some self-time and you want to go meet your source, this is the place for you. June 2016, you need to register ASAP because it'll fill up without you if you don't do it.
I, will be in Poland or someplace. I'm just going to come there.
Yeah, he's going to visit us.
I really want to go.
Yeah.
If I'm allowed.
Yeah, I'll think about it. Yeah. Depends.
I do wear my Depends.
You do wear your Depends?
I do wear my Depends.
Oh, you know what else? Because I talked about that adult diaper story the last time. They showed a woman who had just given birth. And, well, she was standing up taking one of those selfie pictures, and she was saying this is what real women look like after birth, versus the.
And
whatever.
we need to know this because
this is why, because she was wearing, when after you have birth, for those of you who don't know, you do bleed for a while as everything cleans itself out.
Right.
So they showed her, and this time she said, "I'm wearing my adult diaper."
Yeah.
But you don't wear adult diapers.
You don't?
No.
Did you ever wear?
No, they put in pads and things to get the. But this time they showed her an adult diaper, and last time I told you that's a growing trend. Like from 40 and above. So I just think that was interesting. More imprinting. So why they're going to do what they're going to do, I don't know. But I want to keep this one open because it's going to be really weird whenever we figure it out.
Gonna be weird. It is weird.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So we have that. So the main thing is I want to tell you about that. Like our Facebook page. Visit our site. Tell your friends.
The webinars.
Oh yeah, the webinars. I have my next session, self-healing group webinars, and we're working on oversoul communication. People there are doing great work. You can join us at any time. Next session begins the first week in March, and the end of March. We're going to be doing a fasting webinar first part of April, and that is about clearing your mind.
Oh darn, I'll be away then.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you're going to be upset. It's about clearing your mind, and then your body cleans itself out naturally.
Yeah.
So a lot of good information goes on. Join our membership side as well, because that's where we tell you the good stuff. And with that said, I want to thank you for joining us, and please don't buy adult diapers.
No, and don't believe in religion.
No. And don't fight with people, and don't pass on fear. Be good.
Don't what?
Don't pass on fear.
No, don't. Yeah, and
what else?
And
vote for him for like Donald Trump's assistant thing.
for Emperor of the Universe.
Yeah, do that.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'll see you next time. Bye.